you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How's your day been so far? I know it's quite early over there.
No, it's 12 over here, so it's all right. Can't complain.
So today I'm speaking with Terzel Ron Vasquez, Senior Digital Content Producer at OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, with a career spanning Paramount, BET, MTV, VH1, and entertainment journalism. What really interested me about your journey is that it sits at the intersection of media, visibility, and cultural storytelling, from producing digital content at scale to interviewing figures like Channing Tatum, Zoe Kravitz, and Kelly Rowland, whilst also building a personal career that exists publicly alongside the platforms themselves. A lot of conversations I'm exploring through Modern Day Made revolve around cultural authority, public-facing careers, and what it means to build long-term relevance in media today. So it feels like a really interesting time to be speaking with you. It would be great to hear more about your journey, what first pulled you towards media and entertainment, and what led to those early moments in radio, editorial, and eventually producing for networks like OWN.
It started when I was in high school because I was really fortunate to always know what I want to do. And I realized I had to focus on the lane of production. And when I graduated high school, I was really fortunate because I got a full academic scholarship to NYU. And that kind of helped me understand that, okay, when I graduate from here, I could really go full focus into what I actually want to do without the sort of financial pressures that a lot of people have on focusing on a certain path that might pay off financially right off the bat. I kind of knew it was a long game in media, and that's just what I was prepared for. So when I graduated, I went to NYU and started focusing all of my internship experience there on, production, networks. And I worked on a lot of shows and a lot of smaller networks there. And when I graduated, I got hired at Paramount, and Paramount wanted me to focus on production at the BT Plus app. So at the time, they had actually launched it in the UK, and it was like really successful there, and it was like the #1 SVOD initiative there. And they realized, okay, we have to launch this in the United States. So they launched in the United States, and I produced, over 2,000 assets for the app, and worked, directly with the VP, and it was, a really big learning experience because after that, they kind of wanted to keep me on board. The app launched very successfully, and it was met with really great reception, and they realized, okay, he can work on other brands as well. So from that experience, I got to work on MTV, BT, VH1, Comedy Central, Logo, Paramount, legacy Paramount before Paramount was the big conglomeration that it is right now. That's when it was just an individual network. And so that was a great learning experience. From there, I got to work on all those different brands. I learned about the back ends of all those different brands, how different they are on the sites, on the apps. Everything is totally different. I was really fortunate enough to be the only producer on my team actually that worked on all the different brands. And so while I was doing that at Paramount, I always knew that I wanted to be in entertainment as well as a reporter. So I was trying to do that on the side. And I knew that a lot of people that were doing it at the time were doing it sort of like one career path. So they were hosting and producing at a certain network, whether it was Complex or Billboard or a different network like that. And that wasn't my path because when I was at Paramount, it was just production. So I realized I kind of had to do it on the side. And so I started working with this company called Music Exclusives, and they sort of really helped me start hosting as well. So I started off interviewing. I remember this rapper named Key Glock was my first interview, and it was like this big high profile event in New York. And I was nervous and everything like that. But it was like sort of natural after that. It started to be a lot easier. And so I started to interview a lot of different artists and celebrities at different music festivals. And it was a great experience.
You've had a really incredible trajectory from when you got your scholarship at NYU. And you mentioned about your earlier background in looking after shows and production, even youth culture coverage. And something that really stood out to me is that your career developed during a period where media became far more personality-led and visible. And what I would say is it feels like we're moving away from an era where people work behind platforms to one where creatives and producers like yourself, and journalists are increasingly expected to become public facing figures themselves. So I'd like to know, at what point did you notice that shift happening within entertainment and digital media? I know that you've recently been doing more hosting, press junkets, and interviews. So it'd be really interesting to hear your perspective on how you think this has changed the way careers are built.
Yeah, that is an amazing question, because it's so true. The landscape of entertainment journalism and production in Hollywood and media in general has really changed in the past 5 to 10 years. We had the writer's strike in Hollywood just a few years ago. That really changed a lot. It shifted production budgets and a lot of different protocols that networks were allocating a lot of their budget to. They started to sort of realize that there's a shifting audience that is on digital that is growing, and they should shift attention towards that. And you had the creator economy come on the back of that, and a lot of creators were now working directly with brands or working directly with networks and sort of cutting out the middleman of the whole production team needed. That sort of initiative kind of also translated to entertainment reporting and journalism, because now you had a lot of influencers hosting red carpets and doing, big carpets, like interviewing big celebrities and things like that. And it used to be, okay, you work at this network, you build your credentials, and you could do these red carpets and things like that. It just really separated and shifted over the last few years, and so a lot of creators were taking that into their own hands, and it became something to just be aware of and see that it is possible to do now without a traditional, work at this company for X amount of years and progress that way.
Yeah. I mean, would you
Yeah.
say that visibility has now become a part of the job itself? Like it goes hand in hand. If you want to be a producer, if you want to be a journalist, that having your own digital platform is just as important as the skill itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that now there's just no getting around it. There's even so I started when I started, I said, okay, I'm going to be a print journalist and an on-camera journalist, just as a way to kind of like, secure my standing in like music journalism, because that's where I started, like with music journalism and interviewing celebrities and things like that. And now we have AI. So journalism in general is very, very different and under hot water, if I may say so, because a lot of legacy media platforms that specialize in editorial for for decades are now firing staff writers, and they're firing a lot of the personalities that were, used to do certain things, and now we have AI. Now we have, like I mentioned, the creator economy. So a lot of that is shifting, and the main thing is like, you kind of just can't get around it anymore. It's sort of like the era of personal branding, of taking things into your own hands, of doing your own thing, of having the guts and the courage to actually take a chance on yourself. And we definitely see that shift happening today. And there was a lot of great journalists that have done that. I'm still a work in progress on that myself. I'm still building that, but a lot of great journalists have done that and taken it into their own hands and have gone way further than legacy media would have allowed them to if they were working at a traditional news outlet.
Definitely. I agree that there's no cap nowadays when it comes to what you can actually achieve if you were to position yourself in a way that you've got your own cult following audience and that you're able to partner with brands directly as opposed to having to go all the way up through an institutional system. I know that you've worked across some huge entertainment ecosystems from MTV through to BET and the Oprah Winfrey Network. And this has all happened at a time where audiences are constantly overwhelmed with content and doom scrolling. So I'd be interested to get your perspective on what actually creates trust and cultural authority now, especially when everyone has access to a really wide range of platforms and audiences.
I think that the trust factor is something that people have trouble identifying on social media because it's so overcrowded with experts in a certain field, and there's no way to gauge the legitimacy of someone who is offering a service or an idea, because anybody can sell anything on the internet. So, if you have a legitimate career as a journalist, I think that that is the legitimacy that translates to you doing content and you doing whatever it is that you want to do on social media and building your own brand. Because now we know exactly that you know what you're talking about, and we can trust that. And I think that journalists and producers and people in entertainment have a much stronger leg up on personal branding and content than they may think, because they have built that skill set over the course of time, and it is just a skill set that a lot of people need to learn when they're trying to brand themselves. But these are skill sets that you may already have built over the course of time working at different networks, and so that's a really positive sentiment, because it means that as the landscape is shifting and media is lending a hand to AI and different things, and there's all this fear about getting displaced and things like that, and rightfully so. But there is a certain amount of trust that can come from that.
Pattern recognition is such an important aspect of a career that compounds over time. And I think the media industry is one where not many people naturally have the ability to just speak in front of a camera and, connect different thoughts and be culturally layered and be able to bounce off different ideas in a way that has structure. So I think having that experience is just so indispensable. It's something that is so invaluable in today's world where everything is shifting towards the voice.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's perfectly said. Everything is shifting, and you really just have to stay ahead of the curve, and that requires a lot of personal realizations as well, because a lot of people are afraid of making content, or afraid of putting themselves out there, or afraid of what other people are going to say. And that's totally understandable. But in a nature where everyone is now having to shift to a certain direction, and there are technological advancements that nobody can stop, like AI and like content being automated, and I mean, models are getting displaced by AI, and so many things are happening, and so there's just a necessity now to kind of brand yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've interviewed some major public figures across music, entertainment, film, and something I find people really underestimate is how much of celebrity media now sits between storytelling, branding, and perception management. So, when you're interviewing someone like Zoe Kravitz or Channing Tatum, what are you actually looking for beyond the surface level press moment?
Yeah, well, you have really good questions. Yeah, I have been very fortunate to have built both careers as an entertainment reporter and as a producer as separate careers. So they're not actually the same career. I look at them personally as the same career because I'm obsessed with it, but a lot of people may not see it as the same career, and that's totally fine with me. I think that's an advantage because there are a lot of opportunities that can come from freelance work that cannot come from traditional jobs. And they have a more rigid structure, a more regimented system to follow that I don't like to abide by. And I just kind of like to do my own thing. And the nature of what I do, it allows me to do that, thankfully. So when I was working with different platforms, it kind of opens the doors for other platforms. So one of those platforms is the Nocturnal. The Nocturnal, I work with them very often, and they invite me to a lot of award shows and press junkets and things of that nature. And I got that by working at music exclusives, and just, I guess, people being aware of the legitimacy that has been built over some time. And so the Nocturnal actually gave me my very first interview with an actor, and it just happened to be with Channing Tatum. So that was a big experience for me. And at the time, he was doing a movie with Zoe Kravitz, and I worked with the platform to do those interviews, and it was great. Since then, I've worked with Vanity Fair, and they've been able to invite me out to do a few red carpets as well. So the Stranger Things premiere was one of those, and I did another red carpet with Gucci and interviewed Demi Moore and Ryan Coogler and Doja Cat and Yeah, just a bunch of people. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's just great to see how one door can open another. And it's also not related to my other career as a producer. So when I was at Viacom, I was blessed enough to be recruited for the Oprah Winfrey Network. And so someone reached out to me, and then I moved out to LA. And that was kind of like a really fortunate convergence of worlds too, because both of my careers were in the same place, which is New York, and now they're in the same place again, which is LA. And that was just a really great experience. So working with these actors is just a great opportunity and a great experience, and it also builds that legitimacy that I referred to before, which is going to be necessary whenever you decide to brand yourself or do something that is outside of the fold of a traditional job title.
Definitely. I mean, you've worked with some top A-listers and some globally known talent. So, would you say that you can usually tell when someone has a really strong sense of self and public identity versus someone who's being shaped by the industry and trends that are happening around them?
Yeah, you really have to just be yourself and kind of like be yourself, not in the cliche way, but be yourself as in understand that you're on your own path. So you don't need to compare yourself to anyone that is on their own path. It's just completely unnecessary to do so. It's also counterproductive and counterintuitive because it's just distraction ultimately. You just should just focus on your path and for me, working with these actors has been just a reminder that like, okay, your path might be different from other people's path, but you're still doing the things that bring you fulfillment and get you to a certain destination, and that's valid.
Yeah, I would definitely say that out of all paths that there are, media is one of those that you have to be so strong in yourself and have a really strong sense of identity and just be really focused on what you're doing as an individual because what might work for one person might be completely different from another. And everybody has what they bring to the table. Everyone has their own unique value and perspective. And so I think sometimes it's just about being able to quiet the noise, especially I can imagine in places like LA where you've got such a high velocity of people who are coming for various things. And I feel like we're in this really interesting moment where traditional media institutions still carry a level of authority, but creators, interviewers are also building independent ecosystems around themselves at the same time. Would you
Exactly.
say that the future of the media belongs more to institutions or to individuals who build trusted personal brands and communities? So outside of celebrity culture, but more focused on creators.
I would definitely say that the future belongs to those who are taking matters into their own hands and branding themselves. It's not about traditional media anymore. Even on the production side of things, at networks, at large television conglomerations, the wheels move very slowly because they're legacy dinosaur type networks that have been around for generations. And they have been very slow to catch up to the current present day advancement in digital landscape. The digital landscape is now the future of programming and television and content. And a lot of traditional networks are having a hard time catching up with that. And you can see that by Paramount selling BT and BH1. Different networks are selling different proprietary stations that are not necessarily making enough revenue or translating to the digital media landscape. You can see that by a lot of networks still not allocating significant budget towards digital programming and focusing still on linear programming, even though that's clearly not where the audience's eyes are anymore. And these things become more noticeable with legacy networks because they have had systems in place for decades that have worked well for them, but just do not translate in 2026.
Mm.
Networks are still very much behind that fold. They're not necessarily there yet. Now, on the other hand, you have networks that are digital first that go straight to YouTube or straight to SVOD products or straight to some kind of digital content product offering, and those are way more successful. Uh, they're way more successful and they're also way more relevant and they're also way more flexible and they're also way smaller. And because they're more small, they're more nimble and able to navigate when there's a change or understand this cultural shift or hop on that social media trend or they're able to shift their social strategy and digital strategy very, very quickly in a way that is front facing towards the audience and the consumer of the product in a way that legacy networks can't even catch up with. And even these smaller companies that are doing so and are ahead of the fold still need to lean into creators and the creator economy to be the front facing faces of their brand. So, regardless, it always comes back down to creators. To save face, a lot of legacy networks lean into creators after the fact when they realize, oh, this person has social capital because people are clicking on it, it's converting, the ad spend is converting, they're funneling towards their own products, whether that's digital products or IP or brands or clothing brands or whatever the situation is. Influencers can make so much money doing absolutely anything now because they have the marketing base already established. So they can sell and funnel whatever product they want towards that base that's already established. That base is something that legacy networks have established, but have to continue to establish over and over and over with every new iteration of media in general. And it's very difficult. To illustrate that, networks used to be only linear, they used to be only on TV. Now you have networks on linear, on SVODs like Netflix, Hulu, Discovery Plus, BET Plus, Paramount. All of these different networks realized that they needed to make apps of their own network. And now you also have digital networks that are arising on the backs of those networks. So it's like it started off this way, and then they said, we need to shift content, we need to shift strategy, we need to shift audience, we need to shift, and it just keeps on shifting. Whereas creators start in this modern day era and say, I have the value, I have the product here, I have the audience here, and I could just organically expand and cater towards my audience, service my audience while also expanding my knowledge base and seeing, hey, maybe I can make this clothing brand if I want to, maybe I can make this makeup brand if I want to, but it's me who owns it and I can still funnel that towards the consumer. So that is the difference, and that's a long-winded way to explain the difference, but that is a huge difference
Yeah.
between what creators are doing that is very different. And creators will continue to be, the front-facing people of networks.
Definitely. I think the key thing here is that the level of control that these institutions had for such a long time has been completely decentralized. And you've got so many voices and people who are able to be more agile, like you say, and create things on the spur of the moment that actually responds to culture. So I think that has changed everything for good as we know it. And the more that you're able to have a voice, the better and the bigger impact that you'll have when it comes to media and actually selling a product or a point of view. So one thing I also wanted to explore is financial independence within media. I know that you're a big believer in developing the financial systems to support long-term growth, and that from the outside, these industries can look glamorous, but behind the scenes, we know they often require people to build multiple skill sets, revenue streams, and identities all at the same time. So, what would you say you've learned about creating sustainability and independence in a career that's so tied to sustaining visibility, relevance, and constant change?
You are such a good interviewer. You're asking like amazing questions. Yeah, these are questions that people wouldn't necessarily think of unless they're actually doing it and see the difficulty in doing it. And financial independence has always been a very important thing for me. I'm from the South Bronx in New York City, so that's the poorest congressional district in America. So I didn't come from any money. My parents are also immigrants. And I grew up in a one-bedroom apartment with six people that was 500 square feet and invested. So I grew up from nothing. So it was just really important for me to take matters into my own hands and realize that if I wanted to change my financial life, I had to do that. There was nobody else that was going to do that for me. So I started to learn about money and finance at a very early age and just educate myself. And when I started to work, I once again was very fortunate to have had a full academic scholarship. So I didn't have any student loan debt. And I think that that's important to mention because it got me, it just, I wasn't making money or a lot of money in my early 20s. So there is that, nobody's making a lot of money at that age. So it's not like I was able to get a big head start. But I was just able to understand that, okay, there's really a lot of value in the dollar, and time value of money is a real thing. And a dollar right now is worth less than it will be worth in the future. So you should invest it. And so that was just a very big focal point for me. And so I started to invest very heavily. But also, this is another way that I was very fortunate because I mentioned earlier that a lot of entertainment reporters and producers, it is one career for them, it is one job. It is, I work at this network, I'm a host and producer at this network. I take the people that they give me to interview and I do the job, and that's it. And for me, it was I'm a producer at one network, but I'm a host at another network, and I'm an entertainment reporter. And so I was kind of able to jump between both. And to just be transparent, the entertainment industry doesn't really pay a lot when it
Mm.
comes to things like reporting, hosting, journalism. That stuff is very, very hard to get money from unless you are branding yourself and taking matters into your own hands, which I did not do. So, and a lot of people don't do. I did do it because I wasn't at a network, but I did not do it and I didn't have my own platform. So I was still outsourcing different interviews to other platforms, but it was still not personal branding in that way, which is another reason why personal branding is really important. Because I knew that one career wasn't economically viable and another career was, which was the production at big networks, I was able to just focus on investing probably like half of what I made from an early age, and realize that, okay, I don't come from anything, so I don't have to look like I'm living a certain kind of way now, because that's just not the goal. The goal is not to look successful, it's to actually be successful. And so I was able to just invest very heavily. And over the course of time, CNBC reached out and they wanted to do a profile on me about, financial habits. And I also had 5 jobs, so I'm kind of like addicted to work, unfortunately. But that
Yeah.
also gave me a lot of different opportunities to, hey, put the money this way. These jobs won't pay off for a really long time, but that's okay because you have this and you've invested this, and this made X amount of money, this quarter, and things like that. Financial steps at that period in time that was very beneficial later on, that allowed me to buy my first house when I was 27, and just really continue to invest at a high level compared relative to my income.
It just shows that there's an incredible amount of focus here and discipline that has gone into all of this. And it's been obviously something. It's so great to hear someone who's been able to really invest in their dreams and invest in their long-term goals from a financial perspective, because I think it's so important that whilst we talk about all of these glossy, sort of glamorous aspects, that we're also looking at how we can make it sustainable as well. I think a lot of the things that we're actually sort of attracted to are the things that are real lived systems, where a spreadsheet has been made for them and you're having to look at the finer details and the numbers, but the way that it's presented in the media for the public is a very glamorous front. And I think that when you can bring those two together, it's like a really valuable thing. And I think I want to learn how to do more and more of that. I mean, I'd love to go to LA one day and host or be on a press junket and do more presenting as well. I think you've got such great wisdom, especially when it comes to building from scratch and situating yourself around opportunity, especially in this day and age where it's floating around. It seems like there's a lot of it, but there's also a lot of noise. There's also a lot of people who say they can do things for you, or they say they're going to link you up with someone, and actually they might not have the capacity to do it in the way that you expect or the time frame. So I think that it's actually being vocal about all of these things and giving genuine experience and genuine advice, which I think I'm really drawn to. So from your experience, what do you think currently makes people return to a platform, personality, or show consistently? So what makes your job mean something longer term?
I think that relatability is always going to be important. Like, people want to feel like they have a personal connection with you in whatever way that may seem, or have an aspirational connection to you in terms of, hey, this person is living the lifestyle that I want, or they're here in their career and that's where I want to be, or they're working with these people and that's where I want to be. I think that that's really important. I also think it's just really important to just not get your ego involved, because in a lot of different career paths in entertainment specifically, you do come across a few different egos,
Mm.
and it's just not necessary. It's just not a necessary ingredient for anything, success or anything. You should just honestly just keep working, and just don't get ahead of yourself. Just don't think that, oh, I've worked at this platform now, so now I'm worth this, or now I'm, yes, but also tables turn, things change. Just be really smart with the way that you're branding and positioning yourself and the way that you're investing, and just understand that, like, it's just one step at a time.
A great way to say that, just stay grounded, humble, and savvy, and things will come to you when the time is right. So when you really strip away the titles, the platforms, and the industry itself, I think you mentioned about knowing that you've come from all of these platforms, and then sometimes the tables can turn. What do you think is the deeper reason that you've stayed so committed to this career?
I'm really obsessed with it, and I don't know why. I don't know why, but it's just something that I always have wanted to do, and something that I keep focusing on, and I just believe that it'll pay off, in whatever way that may be. And that may not be in the way that you specifically think. It may be in a much better way, but it may be in a much different way. But you have to also take any nuggets of realization that you're on the right path whenever you can, because it's really easy to not think you're on the right path. I mean, that's like even if you're doing a great job, you're not going to think you're doing a great job many times if you're an ambitious person. But it's really important to just relax and understand that you are on your own path, and just don't compare yourself to anyone. And that also brings a lot of confidence too, when you just realize that just do your own thing.
I mean, interestingly, when I spoke with Stephen Watson, who was the previous guest that I had on the podcast, he's the founder of Stack Magazines. The question he left was, why is it that you do what you do? And I think you perfectly just summarized it there, that, everybody's on their own path. And, if you're totally obsessed with it, if it's something that you're committed to, then it just sort of builds from there. And it's something that you've just got to be persistent with and find ways to make it work. And, everyone has their ups and downs, but just having that laser focus, appetite for learning, creativity, collaboration is just, I think it just speaks volumes. The idea from moving from visibility to meaning is something I'm exploring a lot through Modern Day Made, and that's across publishing, entertainment, and culture. And it feels like the challenge now isn't simply being seen, but becoming someone people return to and trust over time. So I have one final question I tend to ask. If everything you're building continues on its current trajectory, what does it become known for?
I just want to be known as someone who followed their dreams. That's it. Everybody's gonna die, and when you die, none of it matters. So it's like you might as well have just spent your life following exactly what you wanted to do. Career-wise, I think that that just means that I did everything that I set out to do. That's the goal. And so in production, I see myself in a certain place in production, and just working with a bunch of different networks instead of just a few different networks at a time. And I actually do now work with multiple networks. And that's a great thing that I want to continue to do. And on the reporting side of things, I also work with a lot of different networks, and so that's something that I want to continue to do. And another goal of mine is, buying more properties, and continuing to own assets. Like I'm really interested in assets, and then buying businesses and things of that nature. And I also own two businesses. So so one of them is an event company, and so I actually recently gave that back to my business partner to focus on the other business. But that other business is what I use to work with other different networks, and so I didn't even realize that I was building that business over the course of the last 8 years of my career. But it was a byproduct. And so that business is just the expertise and skills that I have in network content and production. And so now I just do that with a few different clients. That's just another example of just be on your own path. You don't really know how things are going to work out, but just trust that they will work out. That event company that I gave back to my business partner, we threw concerts for 3 years in LA. And for 2 of those years, I was in LA. But for that last year, I bought a house in Palm Springs, which is 2.5 hours away. And I was driving back and forth for those concerts. And we did concerts every 2 weeks.
Amazing.
Um, and so even now, I drive to LA for those interviews, and they're just something that I don't mind doing. I just know that it's going to take a lot, but also you have to work really smartly too. And so that's something that I am learning now currently as well, and that's something I would definitely recommend.
I mean, it sounds like you've just found your passion and layered on top of that all of these different other streams that just naturally converge together and they all support themselves, which I think is a really great outlook. Before we close, I'm asking each guest to leave a question for the next person I speak to, based on something you think they should really consider. It could be something you're currently questioning yourself on or something you think the industry hasn't caught up with yet.
I would ask them, do you really think you're working in the smartest way possible for you? And the reason why I ask that is because I don't think that I worked in the smartest way for me. Because at one point I did have 5 jobs. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. It's not smart. We have this misconception that the amount of sweat equity that we put into something will pay off because we're sold that, right? Through like hard work will pay off. But I don't necessarily think that that's true. I think smart work pays off. So I think it's really important to just put yourself in the smartest position possible. There's just many different ways to work smarter and not harder. And I don't think that working harder is the way. So I would definitely ask the next person, I know you're working hard, but are you working smart? And are you working as smart as you possibly can with the resources that you have at this time?
Great. I'll make sure that I carry that forward onto the next conversation. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I mean, I've learned so much just about your journey, a little bit about LA culture and how you've managed to create a career that you're so passionate about, but then also making sure that it's sustainable. It's been really great speaking to you and thank you so much for taking the time.
Yes, likewise. Thank you.
All right, take care.